The meeting of the CVTA Finance Committee to order. Ms. Firestone, we have a report.
Yes, we do. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
Here.
Hanover County, Chair Peterson.
Here.
Henrico County, Mr. Thornton.
Here.
New Kent County, Vice Chair Page.
Here.
And City of Richmond, Mayor Stoney.
Here.
All right, welcome everybody to our first fall meeting, I guess. And I think our last meeting here in this space. Next time we're going to be meeting further downtown in the Manchester area in our new facilities that we're going to.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
We're already in your neighborhood.
Yeah, welcome to the new neighborhood.
Okay, do we have any amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment. I would like to add maybe item 6A. We have our auditor here today, so to give them an opportunity for a presentation.
How about 7C, did that work?
So whatever you want me to do.
Okay.
7C works for me.
Okay, so we're going to put Mr. Gerber down to give us an update on the audit.
Yes, sir.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the amendment, that is amended. Do we have any further amendments? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to our next item, which is approval of minutes. Everybody had a chance to look at the minutes. Do I have a motion for approval or changes?
So moved.
A second?
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Next, we have open public comment period. Ms. Farson, do we have anybody online who wishes to address the committee?
We do not.
Do we have anybody in attendance here who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll close public comment period. Do we need to read the statement?
It's, this is part of the new FOIA
I guess I should be asking.
It's not absolutely required that you read it since it's in the agenda and posted online. If you would like to read it, you certainly.
If it's not required, then I think we can move forward with that. It is in the agenda, the requirements for the comment. Next item on the agenda, item 6, CVTA Finance Committee Chairman's Report. I have a couple things I want to address today, but I'm going to hold those until we deal with our future meeting topics, because they don't need to be addressed today, but I think we need to address them in the future. So I'll hold my comments to that point in time. But I'll open the floor to any other members of the committee who may have some comments they'd like to share with the committee. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7, CVTA Activities Report. Starting with item A, Financial Activities Investment Reports. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you very much, sir. Starting on page 8 in your agenda is the monthly investment report for August of 22. This is 2 pages, page 8 and 9. I did want to bring your attention to a couple things. At the bottom of page 8 is a reporting of cumulative interest earnings for FY23, and as you can see, the diversification of the portfolio has included some higher yielding corporate securities, and the interest earnings are elevated for this year. So we're happy with the direction that things are moving in terms of the portfolio, and look forward to tracking that progress year over year. At the top of the next page, you can see that the current yield over a year ago is also much more attractive at 2.6% as opposed to 0.06 this time last year. Otherwise, things are looking good. If there are any questions, I believe Ms. Longacre is in the room for any questions. Otherwise, page 10 is the reporting of the collections and allocations for the fiscal year ending June 30th. Just wanted to highlight the right-hand column is the yearly summary. As you can see, the first thing to note is the regional fund transfers into that were $71,982,000. Payments to GRTC totaled $30,849,000. And then the local distributions, the 50% share, is broken out by locality, but the sum of that is just over $100 million back for local use. So we're excited about that. And at this point, happy to take any questions, but I think things are looking pretty good.
Questions from Ms. Parsons?
Do we know, Mr. Chair, do we know what the existing balance is currently for the 35%, what we actually have sitting in the account?
At this point, I believe I don't have that in front of me, but we have not expended
It should be well over probably 200 million, right?
I believe so, because we're working on, after the first expenditure is gonna be the design build north for the fall line.
Okay,
And that's gonna be sometime later this fall.
thank you.
All right, if there are no further questions, we'll move on to item 7B. PAC activities report, Ms. Clark.
Good morning. Good morning. Today I will have a brief update as TAC will actually have its meeting today. Due to member localities' holiday this past Monday, we weren't able to meet. So we will be meeting at 1 o'clock today. Member governments, we have concluded our FY23 first quarter for financial reporting. And we should plan to check this report in the next month. So that's our quarterly expenditure report for the first quarter. TAC will, not at this meeting, but at our next Fall Line Working Group meeting in November, extensively discuss the spending plan for the Fall Line Trail. We hope to create a prioritization process that will look at the existing segments and those segments that are currently funded already by the authority, which would be the VDOT design build, as well as two sections in the city of Richmond. So we will be looking to also prioritize additional funding to meet the threshold of the approximately $144 million of the Fall Line Trail money available. The next item that TAC will discuss is the obligation phase of the CVTA regional projects. That's moving a little bit slower than we anticipated. Only one member locality was able to submit the spending plan for their regional projects. So we're giving all the localities additional time to really work with their staff and programming to see when they will expect to be programming and spending regional funds for the regional projects that have been approved by the authority. Again, and we hope this is in relation to producing a cash flow document. And so we hope to have something potentially at the November meeting, if not the December Finance Committee meeting. And then I think there's a separate section on there for the project allocation, which I'll save that for then.
Okay, I believe you indicated in our last meeting that November was your deadline. You're still looking to bring that back to us in November? You hedged on that to December just now.
Yeah. And you mean for the regional projects? Yes, sir. So we hoped, again, I stated that only one locality was able to get through their respective, I guess, transportation departments to break down when they anticipate spending the dollars. So we're giving more time. And so we won't discuss it today at our meeting today, because we haven't had enough time. So more than likely, we will hopefully have it all ready by our TAC meeting in November, which would be the following week to bring it to you. But I'm not sure how that will work.
I think we hear you. Realistically, we can expect it by December.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Questions, Ms. Clark, on TAC activities?
And one other note, TAC is still talking about eligibility requirements and distribution of funds on a regional scale, that framework that has been adopted by the full authority is obviously always right for adjustment and improvement. So TAC's going to continue that discussion this afternoon.
You stole some of my thunder. It's one of the things I wanted to talk about
Sorry about
later. So, very good. Okay, if there's no further questions, Ms. Clark, we'll stay close by. But
Okay.
we're going to need you again.
Yes, sir.
But we'll go now to item 7C. Mike Gerber, auditor, is going to bring us up to date on please come forward, have a seat at the table.
Thank you, sir. I'm gonna hand these out to you. I apologize for you not having these ahead of time to take a look at. Yes, sir. Jumping in here next to you. Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for squeezing me into your agenda. I won't take more than an hour to an hour and a half to go through these 30 pages. You'll squeeze me right back out, won't you? But we were able to finish the audit for CVTA June 30, the end of September, and get everything put together and produced here for you for this early October meeting. So everybody worked hard. I think the staff that we worked with, when I say staff, is all those people volunteering and helping out and working, worked very hard to get to where we were so we could have this in front of you this morning. Real quickly, the document that's on top is the financial statements themselves, the footnotes, things of that nature. So that's the one, this says CVTA Financial Compliance Reports. Our opinion that is in the front of that is an unmodified or clean opinion. So that's the type you're looking for. We didn't have any audit adjustments. We had no past adjustments. We had no findings. We had no material items that we needed to point out, anything of that nature. So great to have that clean opinion. Looking at the local distribution fund, everything was distributed there as was required. So all the funds that came in were sent to the localities. The GRTC fund, again, everything that came in and was supposed to be transferred to them was also done during the year. And of course, our regional revenue fund continues to grow and have funds available for these projects. And it sounds like we have one ready or almost ready to go. So that's great. But we did not have any project expenditures for the year ended June 30, 2022. So following the financial statements and the footnotes, there is another report that we issue on internal control and compliance. We had no findings and no issues to report in that opinion as well at the very end on pages 23 and 24. So overall, very clean report with no issues, nothing to point out for this group that I think they should consider. The other document is called Results of the Audit. And again, I'm not even going to open this one. You don't have to either if you don't want to. The things that are important are what's not included in this report. I think I've said that before. If we had issues during the audit, we would put them in here and we'd put them in writing. So we didn't have anything to put in this document to say we had issues during the audit. So no findings, no journal entries. Everyone who we worked with, the different localities, was great getting us information, answering our questions. There is a copy of the arrangement letter in this document, as well as the representation letter that we get at the end of the audit. So those items are included in here as well. With that, pretty clean year. Not a whole lot to report, which is a good thing sometimes. And really, I don't have much else to go over. So I'm happy to answer any questions, address any comments that you may have.
Questions, Mr. Garber?
I got the answer to my other question in here.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Well, that's probably not up to.
That's wonderful.
Today.
No, probably by a little, but not by much.
Yeah, 120 million or so at the end of the year.
Yep.
Yes, sir. So,
And that's based on,
But we've had
Sure.
more distributions since then.
yeah,
Oh,
but
yes.
that's based on,
4 months worth.
essentially starting in collecting funds in July of 20? Is that right? And then to, Yeah.
Approximately, yes, sir.
yeah,
Yes,
July 1 of 20 through essentially July
2
1 of
years.
22, so 2 years.
yes, sir.
First, this is an action item that we need to refer to the CVTA.
I would suggest it.
Okay, do I have a motion to recommend this? Motion from Mayor Stoney, seconded by Mr. Thornton. Thank you. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
So we'll see you at the next meeting,
Thank you.
the next full meeting.
Yes.
All right. And you know when that is.
I will make sure I do.
All right.
Pretty sure it's the 28th in the morning.
Thank you.
We just don't know where, yeah, we do, right?
Yes, that's, don't recall where we haven't had one over in Chesterfield.
Yes.
All right. Let's see, okay, project selection, allocation framework review. I'm glad you stayed up here, Mr. Parsons. Mr. Parsons, turn this one over to you.
Chet touched on it a little bit, and so what the TAC is planning to do, if not, we don't think at this meeting today, but we will be discussing some other, if we have some additional parking lot items for the allocation framework review. But one of the things that we're working to do is testing a number of projects to see how different types of eligibility variables such as ADT or commuter routes affect the scoring. So that's something that TAC thought would be helpful as we look to review and look to some of the comments that were stated, especially from the rurals, about being worried about a number of projects that would be eligible in the current framework. So we thought that if we found that it was pretty successful and helpful in the beginning of the process and the development of the framework. So we will be requesting project types from our localities just to run those and see how they actually score. So that's what we'll be working on in the next month, and we hope as we continue to bring these review items to you on the allocation framework, we hope to have some additional information and guidance on any updates that we would recommend to the authority.
Mr. Parsons, you have?
I think the only other significant thing to note would be the timing of the cycles. TAC is seriously leaning towards recommending
Every other year.
to do a every other year regional project cycle that follows the smart scale determinations, so that there's an understanding of funding commitments through smart scale and the impacts of leveraging CVTA dollars as well as other sources, and then better decisions can be made. There'll be more information to determine what a good match might be if say Hanover County was looking to use some of its CVTA local money to leverage against a smart scale project. What's that mix? We'll know much better after the smart scale cycle is over. And then in the off year, in the every other year, outside of the regional application, there will be opportunities for basically cleaning up existing commitments, understanding differences in estimates and impacts of actual construction cycles, so that CVTA regional funds can be used for those kinds of adjustments as well. But this is still under discussion, so I think TAC would obviously talk about that this afternoon and come back to this committee with what its recommendation might be.
Questions for Ms. Clark or Mr. Parsons?
Chair. One of the things I would ask is that when they're doing that, just to take a look at what would the plan be, for example, if we have a project that's put into smart scale and it comes back and scores absolutely terrible. And so are we gonna sit there and leave that project in our list for 2 years? Or are we gonna go, I'm not sure what we're gonna look at it and say, what can we do? Can this be changed? Can it be fixed? Would it need more money? What is the result of this? Should we drop it? And then if we drop it, then that would free up money back in, and then how do we deal with that? So it's just something that we need to be prepared to be flexible on if for some reason we have a project that we do submit and it's just not viable. It's something to consider when they're mulling over that. What would be our
See, both of them writing this down, this thing back this afternoon.
What would be our option there? Because I'd hate to leave a project in there that's got a commitment for it for money that we could actually use for something else, whether it's a pay-go project that may, a locality, one of our localities may have had something developed that they need the money for. Or it's, so I just want to make sure we look at that.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Thornton?
you know, we did talk in the past about flexibility as it comes to allocations and what have you. It also was brought to our attention to a very critical factor, that is that in inflationary times, if we have a certain allocation, and it's gonna probably be beneficial for this board to kind of take a look at how it wants to work with those type of things there. Because what we're talking about is, although locality X was given the X number of $1,000, when it comes to, in reality of implementing that project there, the price would have changed. So I think it'll be efficacious for this board, along with the framework, to, kind of take a discussion on that and see what are some avenues that would be helpful to take. And when you do that, I think you kind of safeguard your organization, you kind of prepare for changing times and all of that. And, that's would be helpful to attack, I think, too, if there were some indications coming from this august board also.
Sure.
Thank you,
If I
Mr.
could add on to that, I concur 100% with Thornton, which is why I brought up what I did about a project that scores poorly. We may have to roll that money in and spread it out over other projects to absorb these increases. And so it's just, I don't want us to be completely stuck to say it's in there for 2 years, we can't do anything about it, when we know we have increases in all these other projects, and we could take that money and absorb them out instead of having to perhaps redo our entire model. So you brought up a very good point.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
the other thing that we don't want to be as cautious as one of the generals, such as General McClellan, but we do want to be a little bit careful about allocations, in the sense that there are times when obviously member localities will come and need things. But also, we gotta be very careful not let the state get by and not do its due diligence. And so I guess what I'm saying here is that we don't want the CVTA become the only cash cow in this thing. But let's protect ourselves, let's protect the interests of all the localities by saying, hey, yeah, we can do this, but hey, you're supposed to handle that. I think we need to be a little bit aggressive in that domain.
Thank you.
Well said.
I think as well, very, very well brought forward.
So, Mr. Chair, I would think that, so if I'm hearing correctly, with the consideration of every other year, that would come with guidelines, policies and guidelines, or guidelines with that, to include the comments that we heard.
I think that would be the case. I have a question. The 2-year approach, Diane, are we talking the opposite 2 years from Smart Scale, or the same 2 years? I'm saying that because it seems to me that right after Smart Scale has been completed is the time to reevaluate.
That's correct.
So if it would be in between.
Yes, sir.
So if Smart Scale is this year, then the next year would be the time that we look at it. Is that correct? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay, just want to clarify that.
Mr. Chair, I had one comment on the discussion on this
Okay,
end.
please.
Staff has heard loud and clear, not just from the CVTA, but also from the TPO board, that there's a very real concern about the reliability of project estimates and the need to continuously come back and ask for more funding, as well as project management and being able to spend the money when it's allocated, so that we don't have instances where there is funding that is sitting there and not being utilized to its best purpose. So staff has got that direction loud and clear, and we are working through both TACs to make sure that we build a decision-making process that understands that cost estimates are fluctuating drastically right now and increasing probably faster than anybody can think about. So we want to provide coverage and good advice to the authority as it makes these major decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. And actually, one of the things I was mentioned that I was holding off until later is the subject that we're broaching now. So I'm going to make a few comments on that as well. I think we just had a good example of how our CVTA can be flexible with the Goochland request at our last meeting that was approved to move funding from 288 to the intersection 64. Our board made a decision on that. I was the only one, frankly, that voted in opposition to that, but my opposition was very simply what Mr. Carroll and Mr. Thornton were bringing up. I felt like the 288 was too high a ranked project to take the money from that one versus looking down at number 30 and 29 and 30, which had less chance of ever happening. That Goochland was being very generous and very humble in saying they built projects in our community to move that. And I think we've reacted on a timely basis, that if we'd had more time, I would have really thought a little bit harder to say, hey, let's reevaluate, as you said, the project that really doesn't have a China's chance. And I won't finish the statement, but at the same time, take those funds that are not going to be utilized and put them to where we can actually be effective with them. So,
Mr. Chair, I do concur with you on that, if the project that's on the list is submitted for smart scale. But some of the projects at the bottom of that list were not submitted for smart scale. They were actually PAYGO. So we're actually funding them in whole. It was not a project that was submitted for smart scale.
okay, well, this is one of the reasons I'm thinking that needs to be a major topic at one of our next meetings very soon, to look at the process, look at this capacity, which would also include looking at, I think right now we've established initially a 10% bonding policy. We need to look at this in terms of what we want, a AAA bond rating for this organization, but what is our bonding capacity to be able to do that? Is it 10%, or do we have availability to bring more funds to the table to get some of these projects done? I think we do need to have discussion and make good analysis on that as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Thornton.
Chairman, I didn't know I was really talking, but I was thinking about something else, and that is that I recall that we had at least one indication, or property indication, wherein maybe a locality didn't get the pertinent information that it needed to make some decisions about allocations and business with the CVTA. So my point is, we talked about collegiality and all of that. I don't want to speak for any particular locality, but maybe we ought to start thinking in terms of, if a smaller locality needed certain help in certain areas, the larger locality could be there to help. And that's particularly important when it comes to information flow. Because if we get ready to vote on something and someone from a locality say, well, we didn't get all that information, we got to be a better organization to make sure that doesn't happen in the future, in my opinion. And the way we do that is working even more collegially between the smaller localities and the large localities if they choose to do so. And I think opportunities there to have that stimulation, that coming together, it would make the organization strong.
Mr. Carroll.
Last comment, I would say that my colleague here has teed us up for the next item, which would be when we look at hiring an executive director. Because the executive director will be able to coordinate all of these things on behalf of the CVTA to make sure that we are effective all across the board in our communication between all of the localities. So, nice job.
I agree with you. He's teed that up, but I'm still going to accept any more comments on where we are before we go to that.
I think when we talk about some of the smaller localities, most of the smaller localities don't have either a transportation department or a transportation planner. I know, in New Camp, we have been searching ever since CVTA was formed. And just to get a transportation planner, it's like, what part of heaven are they living in? Because we could just can't call them up and get them there. And we've done a ton of interviews, but I mean, and so to make it more attractive, we say, okay, we'll do a transportation director. And even with that, just difficult for the smaller localities to even wrap their heads around it. I mean, I remember when New Kent used to have a transportation before VDOT took over the roads. So we had to have a transportation department, but when they took over the roads, then, you know, the little that we do on roads are through our general services. So I think a consideration of that, or even an assistance if some of the smaller localities even want a transportation planner. You know, somebody to understand, even understands or have the time, because we have people playing dual roles, and I'm not even fully convinced that they understand the transportation part of it. So.
Thank you for that. And I think the largest jurisdiction.
So we need help.
That also might be something that the TPO needs to look at, providing some of these services to our smaller jurisdictions through that process. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I didn't want to leave your comment before addressing it. I would recommend, can I contact PFM and have them available for the next meeting? If you wanted to get into discussion about the 10% cap. And
I think that's, I mean, we set that as being as conservative as we could, to get started, but I think it's time to start addressing that issue and finding the right place. I'm not too sure that the 10% we're at right now isn't harming our ability to have the impact.
Should I look at those for November?
Please, yes, do. Okay, with that, thanks to Mr. Thornton's teeing it up, we will now go to item 9, which Mr. Carroll, let's put this on here, as chairman of the full CVTA. Putting this.
I think I have someone online who, Mary Martelby, who is our HR director, who is going to lead the discussion on that.
Does everybody have the handouts?
I think they're in the packet here, are they not?
Well, actually, they're on the table. They're
Yeah,
on the
handouts.
whole packet, separate handouts.
Same nothing, this one doesn't.
Can you hear us?
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you all for having us today.
Okay, excuse me, give us your name, we've got is your voice right.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm Mary Martin Selby, Director of HR for Chesterfield County Government and a member of the HR Roundtable. I also have with me two of my colleagues from the HR Roundtable, Yvette George, Director of HR for Henrico County, and Katie Dickensheet, Director of HR for Hanover County. So today we want to talk to you about some options that you may want to look at for re-advertising the Executive Director position for Central Virginia Transportation Authority. But before we get into the options, just a quick recap of what's been done related to the CVTA recruitment earlier this year in March. We advertised the position for the entire month of March. We posted the position with 13 professional organizations, all of the non-jurisdictions websites and Plan RVA website. We received almost 20 applications, and then in May, interviews, first and second round interviews were held, but no candidate was referred for further consideration. So today, we want to talk to you about some other options for re-advertising, and hopefully this will assist us in expanding the applicant pool. So if we could go to the next slide. Thank you. So the HR roundtable discussed possible options, and we came up with three. Option one for reposting or re-advertising would be to use the same method that we did before. Basically, the HR roundtable managing the recruitment and selection process. Reposting pretty much with those same organizations and going through a similar process as before. That would be option one. Option two would be to fully outsource the recruitment and selection process. There are search firms out there that specialize in recruiting infrastructure and transportation executives. And we have some that we'll share with you a little bit later in this presentation, but we could outsource the entire process to a search firm. And then the third option is outsourcing candidate recruitment. And then the HR roundtable could coordinate the selection process. And by that, we mean we would use a search firm to source candidates for us, bring those candidates to us, and then the HR roundtable would coordinate the interview and selection process, along with, obviously, the CVTA search panel. So those are the three options that we have determined might be viable for you. The next slide shows you if you decide to utilize a search firm. We have done some preliminary review of search firms that specialize in the profession, and we found two based on the recruitment profile that we posted. We found two that felt confident that they could assist us. We did not find any in the state of Virginia that specialize in transportation infrastructure recruitment, but we did find one in Maryland and one in New Jersey. Boyden in Summit, New Jersey, and JDG Associates in Rockville, Maryland. So those are the two that we located that would be willing, interested, very interested, I should say, in assisting us should we decide to go the search firm route. So what I'd like to do at this time is turn it over to Katie, who will talk a little bit more about those search firms. Katie.
Good morning, everybody. This is Katie Dickensheets. I'm the new HR director here in Hanover County. As Mary said, there were two search firms that were identified that could potentially assist with this search. The first one being Boyden, and just a quick high-level overview there. You can see on the slide, they would be available immediately to start the search. It would take approximately 12 weeks. They do charge a flat fee for the service of $60,000, which is about average for this type of search. They do have additional fees on top of that, covering anything from your research, communication, administration, anything type of travel expenses. And they do, as most agencies, offer a kind of a guarantee that if the person that they place in the position leaves within a certain time period, that they will reinitiate a search for us. And the second one that was identified on the next slide there is JDG out of Rockville, Maryland. Again, similar type of services offered. They're looking at possibly a 14-week turnaround time. Their fee is 30% of the first year base salary, which I understand to be around $200,000. So that would be approximately equal to what Boyden was, around the $60,000 mark. Again, they have additional fees for their research, communication, administration, and travel as well. And they do offer a guarantee, as does Boyden. If nobody has any questions, I will turn it over to Yvette George to kind of walk through the timeline.
Good morning, everybody. I am again Yvette George, current HR director for Henrico County. And what I'm just going to go over briefly, you heard Mary talk about the different options that are available, as well as Katie mentioned the different agencies that would be able to assist. But just looking at the timeline for all three of those options, as well as the timelines for those particular agencies, option one is again having the HR roundtable managing the complete process. Reposting the position, we could repost it on October 31st. Again, carry that for a month, the whole month of November, closing the position as of November 30th. Going December 2nd, pre-screening, looking at, as we have done before, and breaking them out into highly qualified, minimally qualified, and not qualified. And then on December 16th, do a finalized review of the materials and select the candidates for the first round of interviews and schedule those interviews accordingly. The week of the 2nd of January, phase 1 interviews would take place, provide panel members with interview packets, and assist with the development questions in advance of that. On the week of January 16th, the selected candidates that were moved to the 2nd phase would interview with the interview panel members and do background checks for the selected candidates. Week of January 23rd, we had talked about before, doing the background investigation completed on the top candidates that were selected for the position and finalize the selection of the candidate as well as extend the offer. And during the week of the 24th through March 31st, can announce the candidates to the CVTA board meeting in February, March, possibly having a start date for that new executive director. So that is all for option 1. If you go to the next slide, I can just talk a little bit about option 2. And this again is basically giving it the full outsource of the process as well as the selection process to one of the agencies that Katie went over. So again, that same timeline, having them posted between October 31st through November 30th. And then doing from December 1st to December 30th, recruitment profile is reviewed, updated with the consultant. And I'm sorry, and then it's posted during that month of December versus we would post it from October 31st to November 30th. So basically going through the RFP process would be from October 31st through November 30th. Posting the position from December 1st through December 30th, again for that 30-day time frame. January 2nd through March 3rd, the whole process would take place. The consultant will, select candidates for pre-screening, select interviews, schedule interviews, provide panel members with the packets, schedule the phase 2 interviews, conduct background checks. So that agency that, if selected, would go through the whole recruitment process that would stem from January 2nd going through March 3rd. And then February 24th through March 31st, the select candidate announced again to CVTA board meeting. February through March, start date for the new executive director. Did anybody have any questions about this process? This is fully outsourcing the recruitment as well as the selection process to one of the agencies that were indicated before.
Mr. George, go ahead and continue for the third item, third
Yes,
option,
sir.
and we'll have discussion after that.
Wonderful. So option 3 would be a combination of them both. It would basically be outsourcing the candidate recruitment, but HR Roundtable would coordinate the selection process. Again, you would still go through the RFP process because you would have to select the firm. That would be from October 31st through November 30th, December 1st through December 30th. The recruitment profile is reviewed and updated by the consultant. Position is posted, advertised, and consultants contact the possible candidates directly. Week of January 2nd, again, the HR Roundtable would take hold of that to pre-screen and forward application materials, organize the groups again, highly qualified, minimally qualified, and not qualified. Week of January 16th, finalize the review of materials and select candidates for the first phase of interviews. We would schedule those interviews, interview location, and handle all of the logistics surrounding that. Week of February 6th, we will hold those first round of interviews, provide panel members with interview packets, as well as assisting with the development of the question in advance of those interviews. Week of the 20th of February, phase 2. So the selected candidates to move on to the next process would basically be interviewed, as well as the background checks completed on candidates that have been selected. Week of February 27th, we would do the background investigation on the top candidates, finalize the selection of the top candidate, and extend the offer. And again, March 31st through April 28th, select the candidates, announce the CVTA, and have a potential start date for that candidate between the March and April timeframe. And that is the end of our presentation, and we would entertain any questions that anybody has at this time.
Well, I want to thank all three of you, Ms. Selby, Mr. George, and Ms. Dickensheets for your work on this, and open up the floor for questions for any of the three.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor.
And I want to be clear, just a question to the HR roundtable. Just making sure I don't miss something here. Option 2 excludes the authority ever having any interaction with potential candidates. Is that correct?
Who would like to answer the mayor's question? Did you understand his question? Were you able to pick that up?
Couldn't hear it. Could you repeat, please?
Yeah.
The question is, would option 2 preclude or exclude any member of the authority having interaction with any of the prospects, any of the candidates?
Right. No, actually, option 2 includes the search firm sourcing candidates, finding the candidates, and bringing them forward to the CVTA. So they would present the candidates to us, and then we would take over the process. So you would know who the candidates are, you would see their resumes, you would be able to screen and determine who you'd like to bring in for interviews. I'm sorry, option 2.
It would exclude the HR roundtable, basically.
Yeah. So option 2 is the full search. Yes, so they would bring you the candidates, just like we did. They would bring you all of the candidates if that's what you desire. If you desire for them to conduct first round interviews and only bring you what they believe to be the top candidates, then they could do that as well. It's really what you desire.
Thank you, Ms. Selby. Mr. Carroll, you had comments or questions?
I'll defer if you have a question for
Ms. Page.
First of all, good morning to the roundtable. I had the privilege to sit on the recruitment board, and I can truly say that the HR roundtable, with the options that they're giving, and their search went far beyond Virginia. I mean, it went to Florida and Ohio, many other states. And with what they're describing, that this personnel company would do is exactly the process that they use for us. They actually accepted the applications. They went through and broke them down to three different selections: the very qualified, minimum, and non-qualified, and then screen further. And then with the interview process, the HR roundtable, and Mr. Spoonhauer and myself had the opportunity to sit in on the interview process. And so I have to say, I know it was very time consuming for the HR roundtable, but I do think that they did an excellent job in this process, and a fair and transparent job.
Carol.
I'll direct it to my HR director, Mary Martin Selby. In the firms that we looked at, have we asked them for any information relating to any of the successful searches that they've conducted for other organizations? It's one thing to say that you can do it. It's another thing to say, yes, we've done it for these particular authorities or these particular government agencies in the past. And so I'm curious as to know what their success rate was. I do think that we had a great process that we went through. But I'm curious because I'm the one who asked you to find these companies, if they had any information on their success rate.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, we did ask about their turnover data, and for Boyden, they said they had a 91% success rate with top leadership placements after a 3-year period. So 91% of their folks that they had placed were still with their organizations after 3 years. And for JDG Associates, their turnover information says that over the last 20 years, JDG has a 100% completion record in its staff executive searches. Moreover, of the 103 executive searches completed between 2000 and 2020, 88 of the executives placed, or 87%, are still on the job or served in the position for 4 years or more. So they're giving us, their data, for the 3 or 4 year period, which is pretty standard. I think you could count it as success if someone stays with you, 3 years or more.
Oh, question, Mr. Chair. I would agree with that, especially in the competitive market that exists right now in the United States. When you talk about the comments that Ms. Page made earlier, and the fact that they can't hire one.
Right.
And so if you do hire one and they decide to stay with you, it means that, number one, those organizations must be providing certainly a good benefit package to that employee, to the point that they're not farming themselves out to go somewhere else. The follow-up question I have, though, is what do those firms offer in the terms of their search that's different to bring a different candidate pool in than what we did last time? Is there anything that you know of?
Yeah, so we've talked about that as an HR roundtable. We can certainly, as our HR roundtable, post the position, but our search is more, reactive. We post the position and we wait for folks to apply for the job, and then we present those candidates. So one thing you're not getting are candidates who are not looking, right? So they may never see the advertisement with us, the HR roundtable, or any kind of organization that just posts positions. With these search firms, they are in tune to the folks that are in the business, the good folks that are in this business, and they can actually seek out those individuals who may be very comfortable where they are, not thinking about other opportunities, they weren't aware that this position is even, open. They can actually go to those individuals and recruit on behalf of the CVTA. From an ethical standpoint, the HR directors, we wouldn't be able to do that. So that's the biggest benefit I think that we see with a search firm, is they can actually go after candidates. And we can't.
So, Mr. Chair, follow.
Please.
So in other words, we would actually hurt their success rate, because they'd probably go after one of the candidates that they may have already gotten a job somewhere else and poach them for us.
They wouldn't go on, well, yes, they potentially could go after candidates that they've already placed, but there is that time frame that they wouldn't touch anybody. Right. So, yeah.
And I think that's the big distinction here, Mr. Chair, is that they have an ability to do something that we don't. And that is to find a candidate somewhere who's out there, who's very qualified, who is not going to look at the website to look for something else because they hadn't thought about it. And then they reach out to them with an opportunity, and they go, "Oh, wait a minute, this is something I didn't hear about. This is something new." And I do think it would expand from my personal opinion, expand our ability to touch more people and, do what we're trying to do, which is to get the best person in for our organization to help us in the future.
Mr. Chairman, I will add, the ability for a firm to find those who might be in larger markets, who might be in not necessarily the primary position as the CEO or the executive director of an authority, but maybe might be the number 2, or those who might be in smaller markets, who may serve as the CEO, who may be looking for that step up into a place like, let's say, Richmond, Virginia, Central Virginia. That, I think, is creates a whole world of possibilities that I think a firm with sort of the experience and the technical expertise opens up for us. And so with that, I would move for us to go with selection number 2 as the option on choosing the next executive director of this authority.
Well, I do have a motion. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
You'll second? Okay, now let's go to discussion on that.
Mr. Chair, clarification on the motion.
The motion, as I heard it, was to go with option 2. We have,
My clarification is to make a recommendation to the full CVTA on an option, right, from this committee.
Friendly amendment.
We do not have the authority to initiate this on our own, I don't believe. Correct. Is that correct? Okay. That's
why I was just asking for a clarification on the motion.
Yes, add the word recommend.
Thank you.
I wanted to open it for discussion because option 3 also includes these same firms. Is there, but it allows HR to still have input. So I just want to open the floor up to see if there's some discussion on that as well.
I think it's important for the HR roundtable and for CVTA members to have input because they have a better scope, and surely we have a better scope as to what we're looking for and how they would fit into our organization and our region.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Mr. Thornton, do you have anything to share with us on this?
No, I'm just reflective on everything that I'm hearing, yeah.
I would like to ask a question of our HR roundtable folks that are here today. Should we go with option 2? As the CVTA, can we still pull you in at the times when we're actually doing the review to assist in the interviews?
So my experience, and certainly I'll ask my colleagues to weigh in on it too, but my experience here in Chesterfield with hiring a search firm, even when you fully outsource it, you don't really fully outsource it, right? Because they still need a contact. They still need someone to communicate, with the hiring authority. They still need individuals to review, any changes they may make to the profile, questions. So I think even with option 2, there is still that partnership that exists between.
So HR roundtable will still be with us, just to a lesser degree on option 2 than option 3.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I was, if you don't mind me adding, I imagine that if we go with option 2, we're able to massage how and shape the way we want this to work. We would let them spearhead the effort, but we can always massage and shape this the way we want to see it. I mean, at the end of the day, we're the ones making the payment.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer, similar to Ms. Selby's comments, I do think that it's important that the recommendation to the authority specify the role that you'd like the HR roundtable to play. Given the relationship that CVTA has with Plan RVA, I think it would be appropriate to have, if the roundtable is open to it, have them be the point of contact, maybe a designated individual among them, be the designated point of contact supervising this contract that CVTA would have with the vendor. We can coordinate on the back end, I think, administratively on what the steps are to integrate the candidates and individuals into our HR systems. But I do think that it is smart to make sure that there's a designated lead for the consultant so that there's no kind of confusion as they're working on that, and then, kind of flow that through the administrative process. But I think that's another part of probably the motion that might want to be considered about how to activate and engage the HR roundtable to run point on the process.
Mr. Chair, I think that's something that can be addressed in full committee when under discussion, and this motion is basically to forward something forward, and as the mayor has said, this is probably going to change when we get there, and I do agree with your assessment, considering that we have Mr. Parsons acting as the executive director right now for the CVTA, and I think that in fairness to him, We do need to have someone outside of Plan RVA that needs to be a contact for this, but I think all of that could be worked out in the full committee.
Okay, Ms. Tony, would you be acceptable to, if we will pass the motion as it is, assuming we didn't go that way? But I think we could forward our recommendation to the full body as we want to go with option 2, but HR will still be there as our active support for the CVTA process.
Essentially, it's a hybrid of 2 and 3, is what we're gonna end up doing.
I'm in agreement.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of recommending this to the full board, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Okay. I'm against my motion. I thought maybe this would have to be a roll call, no?
No, it's just
No?
a recommendation.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so
That was good.
that will go to the meeting.
That's a new one.
Said I was for before I was against it.
That sounds
We've all
weird.
seen
I know, right?
I believe.
Mr. Peterson, I'm sorry, if I could just say one more thing, and I can pull up the slides if you like. The timeline does, just so that this committee's aware, the timeline that was recommended would be that the full authority meets on the 28th, and that the RFP would essentially be released on the 31st, that following Monday. So I do also want to just kind of alert you to that timeline, that everything that you looked at today is predicated on this moving swiftly from that Friday. So that would mean that, the RFP would get developed and be ready to go. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. I think it's doable, but depending on how the authority responds to the recommendation and that kind of thing, that the timeline will have to shift if you take longer to.
Mr. Chair, what I would
move
say
those
is I would
steps.
ask the HR roundtable if we're gonna utilize them to see if they could be amenable to preparing an RFP, which we probably already have a go-by from the last time, to present at full committee when we do this.
Well, this RFP we're talking about is for the consultant, Boyden or
Yes.
JFP, or others. I'm assuming that there are others that,
They could put in.
this was cursory. That
Yes.
As far as that first month is to select a consultant. Is that correct?
No, as I understood the timeline, the consultant would be selected, yes, during that first month.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you put the RFP out to hire a consultant.
That's
So
right.
all we
I
need to do
just-
is get that prepared and have a go-by for that at the next at the full committee meeting that they can present to the full committee at the same time.
So I just wanted to clarify.
That's a good idea.
Between now and the 28th, you
Correct.
do want that RFP to be developed, to be ready to go, should the authority decide to move forward with that.
Yeah, I believe that's the consensus of this committee, that you do.
It's the HR roundtable, are you able to do that? Mary?
I was trying to come off of mute. I'm sorry. Absolutely. I think between the three of us, we've all done executive recruitments in the past, and we have RFPs. I think between the three of us, we can put together one, for this process. Ms. Heater, if there is a template that you all typically use, if you could send that to us, we'll use that format. Otherwise, we will use one of the three organizations' formats for the RFP template.
I'll follow up with you this afternoon, and Mr. Gregory and I can help provide all that information and kind of the process for the CVTA's RFPs.
Very good.
Ms. Selby, I want to clarify that we're all on the same page. We're talking about an RFP for the consultants.
Yes, sir.
To select a consultant, not the executive director, okay?
Exactly. Right. For the
Yeah.
consultant.
Clarification, Mr. Gregory, did your office want to do that or working with them to do it?
No, Plan RVA has templates that we've provided to them that they regularly use for
Okay.
RFPs. So we'll take that and use that to issue, to prepare the RFP for this recruitment.
Perfect.
Okay.
And we can provide the language in terms of what we're looking for in a search firm.
That's right, yeah,
Right.
we'll just put that together and prepare to have it ready to go out the door on the 31st.
As Mr. Thornton always says, and I see you smiling now, this is teamwork working together. Thank you very much. All right, with that going forward, I think we're ready to move on to our next topic, which basically is future meeting topics. We had already discussed the dealing with project adjustments and bonding capacity that we need to look at. I think there's one other item that I would like to offer for future meeting, is I think we have restrictions as far as our regional funding right now as to what routes and byways that can be, that our funds can be used towards. And I think we probably need to look at some of those and going forward to see if there's any adjustments need to be. I'm thinking in terms, Goosen brought a good question here. Talking about the Ashton Road, Mannequin Road, which I don't believe qualifies. It qualifies as, the bridge does because of 64. But the other road probably would not qualify for the regional funding. As I understand it, it has been defined. Richmond Henrico Turnpike is a good example of a road that I don't believe qualifies, but yet we've got a major Amazon facility going on that road right now. It's an economic development issue. So I do think we need to probably take a look at, have we identified the places where our funds can be used effectively? That's open for discussion. Take it, or have we limited ourselves on that? So I'd like to have that brought up as a subject of one of our meetings to discuss that aspect.
I would ask, are we directing the tax to prepare something to bring to our committee?
I think that we will do so. I will do so. That is take that to that.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, do we acknowledge and thank the group that gave us the report?
We have not, and I would appreciate if you would take charge of that for me.
Well, we want to really thank the group that given us this report this morning. This will greatly help this august committee to make the right decision to pass on to the full body. So thank you so very much for your input this morning.
I hope you all heard that. You were speaking low.
Thank you.
We are very appreciative of everything you've done for us, and will continue doing for us. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, have a good day.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate you being with
Before
us.
you jump off,
Yes, sir.
I will say that when you look at the comments that Ms. Page made earlier about the larger jurisdictions being able to help the smaller or the greater good, this is an example where the HR Roundtable is performing exactly that function, that we're lucky enough to have experts in this area working for all of our different jurisdictions that can step up and really hit the home run for us. So I really appreciate the research that they did and the information that was provided.
Thank
Now
you,
you
sir.
now you can run.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Next item, we have CVTA Finance Committee member comments. Anybody got any further comments to share this morning? Seeing none, we will adjourn this meeting. Next meeting will be on November 9th, and we'll be meeting at the Current, which is it's in your agenda, the street address if you need that to get there. But will give us an opportunity to get used to the new location that we will have coming next year. We will be meeting in the common meeting room that they share with the different tenants, and they were good enough to allow us to do that.
And they have fresh food at markets downstairs in case someone's hungry for breakfast.
Got a coffee shop on the first floor.
Good urban living. Good urban living.
It'll be early in the morning, so it'll be the coffee shop, not the Legend.
Yeah, these meetings would do well with a good breakfast, you know what I mean?
Okay, with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, look at that, just a little over an hour. It's pretty, that's pretty good.
Croissant,